It is now May of 2020, and in this video, I'm going to be using data analytics in R to determine whether you should be selling your bullish positions in May and buying them back again in November. The first time I heard the phrase sell in May and go away was about 8 years ago. Back then, I was taking a course where the instructor said, come every May, if you don't sell away all your positions, you're gonna feel like you should have sold away all your positions in May and then only buy them back in November. But what could be so terrible about the months from May to November? What is the market so afraid of? Or actually more specifically, what are we so afraid of? Sure, some terrible things have happened between this particular period. Lehman Brothers happened in September of 2008. Black Monday, October of 1987. 9/11, September 2001. So there you have it, folks. Evidence that the months from May to November, bad things do happen to your portfolio. But is that necessarily true? Of course it isn't true. Because as I'm recording this right now, COVID-19 is ravaging the entire world. It's not between the months of May to November. In fact, COVID-19 hit in the beginning of February and March. So for those of facts, let's turn to Investopedia. What does Investopedia say? Investopedia says, sell in May and go away is a well-known financial world adage. It is based on the historical underperformance of some stocks in the summary 6-month period commencing in May and ending in October. Some investors find this strategy more rewarding than staying in the equity markets throughout the year. They subscribe to the belief that as warm weather sets in, low volumes and the lack of market participants, presumably on vacations, can make for a somewhat riskier or at a minimum lackluster market period. That second paragraph sounds like total BS to me. Have there really been lower volumes from May to November? And even so, does lower volumes necessarily mean riskier or even lackluster? I'm filming this video in May and I thought it would be a very good idea to dig into this saying a little bit more and find out whether we should really be doing something about this, or is this just a saying that we could pretty much ignore? There are a couple of things I want to use data analytics to find out. 1. Market performance. Did the period from May to November show a noticeable dip in the market performance? I'm not really looking for consistent downward performance from year to year because, to be honest, that would just be too obvious. I don't expect that to happen. But how many years did the market sink from May to November? And when Investopedia says that this period will be lackluster, how does this lackluster period compare to the other wintry months from November to May? 2. Volumes. Did the volumes really underperform in this particular period? Was the volumes less compared to the periods from November through May? And did all those traders really go on vacation? If they did, we should be able to see a difference in the volumes. 3. Portfolio performance. If sell in May and go away were true, then what this would mean is if we sell our portfolio every May and buy them back in November, we should see a better performance compared to if we just simply buy and hold the entire 20 years. That would be true, wouldn't it? So here's how I'm going to approach this project. Here's the plan. Let's keep things simple. My portfolio is going to be one stock of SPY, and the duration of this study will span from January 2000 to December 2019. I'll be pulling data from Yahoo, and the columns I'm interested in are the SPY closing prices and its volumes. I'll wrangle the data such that I get weeks, months and years as individual columns. From here, I can choose to take the closing price for the week and then calculate its percentage change from the week before. I'm going to then nail down a window for the sell in May phenomenon starting from the last week of May to the last week of November. We will call this the summary months. To determine market performance from May onwards, I'm going to measure the percentage change week by week. For comparison, I will repeat this on the wintry months from November through May. The same methodology will be used to compare volumes. I generated a bunch of data analysis results for this video, where I considered different ways of slicing the data. I'll be talking more about the results later on. The volumes comparison is much simpler, since we can just take the volume as is. I aggregated volumes by months and used both mean and median to look for influence of outliers. The portfolio performance portion is probably the most interesting and the most useful for us. Portfolio performance for the sell in May strategy will take the cumulative gains over 20 years of buying the SPY, but selling it every last week of May before buying it back again on the last week of November. I tossed in different months at which we buy back the SPY just so we can have a more nuanced analysis. Now the code for this particular project is extensive. There's a lot more code here than I did in the past 2 weeks. Rather than go through every single line of code over here, because that's just going to take way too long, I'm going to produce a separate video just for all the codes. So if you're interested in going to the details, the fine details of R coding for this particular project, look out for that video over there. So, the results. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't really expect sell in May and go away to produce any form of useful results. I didn't expect it to be pragmatic because it had this sweeping generalization about it, doesn't it? But let's look at the facts. Let's look at what the results tell us, shall we? This heat map shows us visually the percentage change in SPY since the end of May over 20 years. At a glance, we already do not see that many red areas, hence the SPY generally does not fall from May onwards. There are a couple of years where the map shows up red, but these are not the majority. Before we move on to the next slide, notice the legend shows the red regions extend to over 60% losses in the SPY. 60%! Let's keep that in mind as this info will come in helpful soon. Plotting the performance in the vertical axis gives us another visual representation. Most of the years tend to cluster around 0 or higher, while a handful of years take a trip a long way down. These years coincide with the dot-com bubbles bursting in 2001, as well as the financial crisis of 2008. If we follow the 2008 line to its lowest point, we see that holy crap, the biggest loss since May hit over 62.5%. What about averages then? What is the mean performance in the SPY month by month over 20 years? Well, the mean performance stinks. It's mostly negative. But if we use the median instead, we notice that the average actually shows a bullish gain. Thus, this is a strong indication that a couple of outliers are actually skewing the mean results lower. Remember those years where we saw very big losses? Those years such as 2001, 2002, and 2008 are your outliers. They are the ones dragging the mean down. What about number of occurrences then? How likely is a month between June to November going to be up or down? Well, this result here shows the scales tip towards bullishness. There are more occurrences of bullish weeks than there are bearish ones over a 20-year period. This is yet another indication that the few outliers were having an outsized effect. Here's another way to look at the analysis. The box plot shows us the spread of the percentage changes. We see the medians stay above 0, while those huge drops are outliers. But fancy charts aside, we need to compare this summary May to November period with the remaining wintry months. Is there really a significant difference in how the SPY performs? So a t-test was carried out. To build the case that summary months perform worse, we need to see a p-value smaller than 0.05. But we don't. Instead, we get a p-value of 0.861, thus proving that no, the SPY does not perform poorer during the summary months. Oh, and remember what Investopedia said about volumes being lower because more traders are on vacation? That turned out not to be the case either, with volumes showing no significant difference between summery and wintry months. Now for the main dish. Can we actually save money by selling in May? After all the results shown above, I'm not optimistic. It already feels like sell in May has no credibility to me. But let's look at what the data tells us. Unsurprisingly, selling in May and buying back at the end of November turns out to be a pretty terrible idea. We miss out on so much gains in that 6-month summary period simply because we chose to listen to an old saying. Buying back end of October fared a little better, but those 5 months away every year still led to reduced gains. The surprising find here was selling in May but buying back at the end of September actually resulted in higher gains. I did not expect that. Personally, I doubt I would go to the trouble of selling and buying end of September, but I can foresee that some people would for that marginal gain. Would you? Let me know in the comments below. Right, so now we know. Sell in May and go away? Sell in May and go away needs a rethink. Maybe we should rename it Sell in May and make your gains go away. And that's the end of this week's video. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to click that like button, subscribe to my channel. If you disagree with my analytics, feel free to say so in the comments below. I'm happy to take all your comments. I will take in your comments to think about what to do for my future videos as well. Until the next video, thank you for watching.